Welcome. We are Group 5, and that includes myself, Caroline, and also Adam, Anne, Gerard, and Julie. The title of our presentation is The Benefits of Group Work Outweighs the Difficulties Encountered when Assessing It. So each of us analysed the impact of group work assessment within our own teaching practice. We then compared our case studies against pedagogic opinion. This has informed our research on topics that underpin the future of group work assessment to be effective, progressive, inclusive, and above all, fair. So let's start with a short film of interviews with students from the BA Film and Television course. This film raises pertinent questions about group work and the group work assessment process.
Just to point out to people, Gail has published the location of the video in the chat window. If you click on that, you might find it will play on your computer.
Caroline, it's finished playing.
I don't know if anyone can hear me, but I seem to be locked out of the Blackboard Collaborate. Can anyone hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So can we stop the clock due to technical difficulties, please? Because I'm going to have to come out and go back in again.
Okay.
Ellen, we've been having some major challenges, and maybe actually, as a function of having seen all the presentations today, maybe our challenge ultimately is internet links between here and New Zealand. It's been pretty torturous process.
Okay.
If anybody wants to ask about the video and the students in it, I'm up for that.
Caroline's back, I think, with us.
Hi, I'm back again.
Well done.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
I'm sorry about
that's
that.
okay. That's okay.
Right.
You're a long way away.
Well done, Caroline.
Yep.
Okay. Well, anyway,
shall we start
I'll
the clock
carry
again?
on.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, thanks.
All right then.
Okay. Oh, now I can't move this. Oh, great. Okay, well, I'm sure this has brought up issues expressed by your own students. So what challenges the successful delivery of group work assessment? I'm sure we're all aware of shrinking budgets, larger cohorts, less tutor time, and the general perception of group work assessment, especially of fairness, accuracy, and validity. We need to remind ourselves and acknowledge that each group of learners consists of separate and individual identities. There is also the traditional paradigm of assessment that only individuals can be accurately assessed. There is no process or quantifiable way of assessing group processes, as they are intangible, unquantifiable, and transient. This creates challenges in monitoring groups. And this is something that Gerard, one of our team members, brought up in his case study. Learning can be vicarious, and often passive students are not disengaged. So quiet students are listening and learning. Sorry. Here is an example of student perception of group work. This is supplied by Adam. And Adam asked students if they liked group work. 25% thought it was unfair, but on balance did not think there was an alternative or better solution. This emphasizes the need to manage group work exercises carefully, and it also demonstrates how students feel we are unable to provide fairness in assessment. Another challenge is resistance to group work. Free riding, and I think we're all aware of what this is. Not only is this demoralizing for other group members, but there is a feeling that assessed group work does not differentiate between engaged participants and these free riders. A term of resistance is group hate, which sums up all the negative perceptions students have of group process and assessment. They worry about validity, accuracy, reliability. As tutors do not observe firsthand the investment by each student, how can they reliably assess the individual input? Perhaps some students do not think group work is appropriate for preparing them for employment. As demonstrated in my case studies of illustration students. However, alternatively, with Julie's module, all the students have arrived understanding that the whole course operates learning to reflect the industry or film industry as group work. And then there are the individual's own disabilities, the less able or unconfident student. So as examples of the processes that affect group assessment is group formation and dynamics. As the process often starts with group formation, it is crucial to the learning experience, the product and the eventual marks that students feel selection is fair. Again, drawing on our case studies, we found this to be reflected by students on our modules. So preparing and training students to actually work as a group and to actively engage as a group member. They had to establish an interactive and professional relationship with each other. So a cohesive and productive team is essential for a group to be effective. And trust the group selection process has been fair and supports learning. Forming, norming, storming, performing. This acknowledges how the group forms in stages so it remains productive. Should group members be selected by tutors? Well, for level 4 students or those who are socially awkward or sideliners, this helps to place them. But should selection be random or engineered? Well, being placed in a random or engineered group allows them to meet new people, but blame can then be attributed to the tutor of unfair selection. Also, students may feel less ownership of their group. They just might not like each other, so they opt out of projects. Then the tutor needs to decide if the groups are made up of similar or mixed ability. Well, if the range is too great, then neither the better nor the less good students are likely to benefit. Or selecting groups by streaming ability raises marks for more able students and lowers them for the less able. Case studies revealed explanations of why grouping is chosen can help dissipate this anxiety for students. Does an imposed selection reflect the experience that students will encounter in the real world? And if that's so, is this what we want? Perhaps we need to be much more thoughtful about the way group work is applied. How about self-selecting by groups? This is something that Julie facilitates within her film students. And because this might be the first time that students have been part of the selection process, we need to equip them to do this. Continued cohesion can be developed through stages of assessing, like the previously mentioned forming, norming, storming, performing strategy. Providing space for processes such as selection of own criteria helps with engagement into group work and of assessment. This benefits students by having ownership and the opportunity to work with like-minded colleagues. And finally, something very necessary on practical-based modules is holistic module of what the set project requires, most necessary on the Contract Practice module that Adam is part of. And here is some of the information from his case study. The knowledge of deliverables at the start of project. Well, given that group work is intended to support student development into working life, the survey identified that students compared to professionals were less aware of the deliverables. Adam recognizes this is no great shock, but this does need attention within curriculum. How about perception of the definition of their role? Students were also less aware of their role in the team at the start of the project compared to professionals. Students need guidance to establish roles, and the activity and responsibility of that role needs to be defined. This takes us into the issue of allocating work within groups. Obviously, group size is a key factor and should be sensitive to the nature of the task throughout the various modes of subjects. As an example of this is the film and TV courses use of industry practice such as pitching, auditioning, and applying. This emphasizes the importance of students becoming inducted into the discipline's community of practice and provides a transparent example and process of peer assessment. It also brings ownership and belonging to a group by engaging the students in process. Also, encouraging self-monitoring along the process. The use of group-created contracts will enhance engagement and understanding of the real world. There's a really interesting quote I've included here by one of Julie's students. I don't think it's fair, but I think it's as fair as it will be when we leave and go and find work in the real world. So I guess it's not fair, it's accurate. And it's okay that it's not fair. This demonstrates that students understand the unfairness of the real world and perhaps have started to develop strategies to cope with this. So, in conclusion and recommendations, let's just look quickly back at what the advantages of group work are. Okay, deep learning because of active participation. Ambitious outcomes are more possible than performing as individual, and quite importantly, transferable skills, emulates the workplace, helps students' employability. Bonding by belonging to a group. And the disadvantages, I think we're all aware of these. So, what can we do to help? Students need to be adequately trained, then assimilated into the process of group work so that any apprehensions can be answered. As experienced by this group's members, contracts engages cohesion in groups. Peer marking could alleviate the unknown contribution that tutors fail to witness, and it is also a valuable exercise in learning. Formative assessment. This is very important, and further monitoring can troubleshoot any problems occurring at the time. And all of this would mean designing assessment for group participation. So designing space in the curricula to provide a formative and developing method of assessment. Forthright discussions about the difficulties and rewards of group work. Designing assessment for process as well as product can shift emphasis away from the first past the post to developing deep learning and transferable life skills that are inherent in group work. Group tasks should be thoughtfully designed as highly collaborative and also include using skills and outcomes that function best completed as a group. This means we can design assessing as a productive part and valued benefit of the group work experience. Thank you. That's the end of our presentation.
Perfect timing. Thank you very much. Spot on. Okay. Can I take any questions? Have you got questions?
Aisha, hi.
Go ahead, Aisha, you have the microphone.
Need to press talk, I think.
So what's press talk?
Hi, Aisha.
Hi. I wonder whether you, as a group, you have thought about particularly looking at the film students, whether their acceptance, their willingness to collaborate, despite sort of demonstrating reservations, whether, because of the nature of the film industry is so very much about individuals having a role but being part of the bigger picture, do you think particularly film and media students are more predisposed to working in groups, or at least developing strategies so that they can successfully work in groups?
That's a good question, Aisha, and I'm going to let Julie, who's the expert in this field, answer that.
I don't know whether I'm an expert, but yes, when we select students at interview, we select them, they are really briefed that they're going to do nothing but collaboration, and they're very aware of that, and that's the most important thing of all. They come knowing that. Of course they do work as individuals in their theory aspect, but when they're working in practice, it's always group work, and they're indoctrinated right from the start. Okay.
I think maybe we could learn some lessons from that then for business students. Thank you.
I think that's also interesting because that's something we picked up on as a group, and I think I mentioned it, I hope I did in the presentation, that there is a real difference of students coming onto a course understanding that group work is actually part of the industry and part of the learning process. So there's no sort of talking them into becoming a group. They don't have resistance. They understand that that is actually part of the deal.
Right. Thank you.
Many thanks. Isis, you had a question?
Yes, I don't have a question. I only want to say that I really like the quote of the students saying that she understands that it's important for them to work in groups, and it doesn't matter if it's fair or unfair, the marks that they receive, but it is good for the future.
Okay, thank you very much. Could I just ask a question? Julie, I think you said, did you go for self-selecting groups? And I just wondered what you thought the pros and cons of that were. I know some people move students around and select groups for them, and I just wondered about the way you've experienced the self-selection of students working together.
Well, the students work, they select, but they have a thing called pitching, where they actually do what would probably be called a small presentation, where they pitch their ideas and their reasons for working on within a particular group or on a particular script, and this is to a panel of other students, and so it is through a sort of developing process that the selection happens, and there's lots of, it's quite stressful for them, but I think eventually they do actually value this because they feel that it's a good skill that they can take away into the industry, and as it's very competitive, they're going to need to have this small element of competition, in fact a large element.
That's interesting. So they're actually selling themselves to groups, to join groups. So they, so the group selects them rather than they select the group. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, it's interesting.
Their peers do, yes.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting. Okay, does anybody else have a final question for the group? No? Okay. Do you want to just take a couple of minutes to note your feedback and your grade for the last group? Thank you very much for your presentation. Very interesting, and notwithstanding, I think you were very calm, Caroline, through your technical difficulties. So if you just want to take a couple of minutes to take some notes, and then I'd just like to do some summing up about what happens next. So if you just want to make a couple of notes now, and then I'll take you through the sort of next stage of the process and have a few things that I just want to clarify for you. But thank you very much, Group 5. Okay, so what you should have, I've shared my desktop with you, so technology willing, you should have in front of you a copy of the pro forma that I sent round and that is on Blackboard. Everything for today is in the assessment section under a heading Presentations 30th of March. If at any stage you can't hear me, just put your hand up and we'll help you. So there's a pro forma for you to complete your feedback. I've done them in group running order. I hope that's helpful. So it doesn't go 1 to 7. It goes to the first group followed by the second group. So just be aware of that when you're filling them in. I've put the names of the group members in, so just so that you can remember which group was which. So some feedback on your summative comments on the presentation, sort of why you're giving it the grade, and perhaps some developmental ideas as well. So what you liked about it and what you thought might be done differently or developed. So a couple of lines of feedback, please, and the recommended percentage mark goes here. And then could you delete, please, whether you are a peer or self-assessor? So peer is if you are assessing a group other than your own, then your grade is a peer grade. If the presentation was for your own group, then it's a self-assessment. So this is not about marking other members of your group that we've heard a lot about this morning. This is about marking the final presentation according to the criteria we've given. So those criteria should be on your screen now. So what everybody has is identified an appropriate issue, because we sorted that out at the planning, and then we're looking at the extent to which there was a critical analysis and coherent description and ideas for current and future practice. And really what we're talking about for those that you might be evaluating in the pass grade is that you've got an issue that's been analysed with some different sources and perspectives, relevant literature, a clear presentation, perhaps deals with it in terms of a breadth. So you've got a broad overview, so we've got some proposed solutions, some relevant literature, and a broad overview of the issues. Where I think you're looking at a merit, you're thinking about developing more depth, so focusing on an aspect of complexity and exploring that. So there's something very solid about the literature that's used, not a catch-all, but selective use of the literature applied to the issues that have been explored. So we're looking here really for focusing in on more depth in terms of the complexity of the issues you've looked at. And then for a distinction, thinking about something that struck you particularly as having both breadth and depth within the context of the issue chosen. So something where there is some independence, something that's quite different about this, connected certainly to the literature in the field, but that's taking us to a more critical individual perspective, and the work planned so that it hangs together very coherently in terms of the complexity of the work. So when I've finished talking, if you want to spend some time perhaps reviewing your feedback and criteria when you put them up on the screen, sorry, when you submit them for me. The arrangements for the final submission of your feedback form is similar to the submissions that you've done already online. In the assessment section of the Blackboard site, there is a link that says Submit Peer Assessment. So everything goes on the one form. All 6 groups, your feedback, whether or not it's peer or self-assessed, and your grade all goes on the one form, and you upload that form. I'd appreciate it if you do that today, if you've watched all the presentations today and stuck with us today and been able to do that. If you haven't been able to watch all the presentations today because you've been teaching and all those other things you're doing at the moment, if you could have a look at the recording. When you go into the Collaborate room session, you'll see that each room, there's a tab at the top which says previously recorded sessions, and in there you'll see that the sessions from today will be appearing along with many others. You seem to be recording yourself a lot, so you're looking for the one for the 30th of March. Have a look at those and upload it, and if you could make sure you have that all uploaded by Tuesday, please.
Can I just remind everybody? Can I just remind everybody that the recordings won't play if you're using Internet Explorer 7, and that's quite common at the university. So if you're at the university you want to play them, can you make sure you use Firefox? That should work fine.
Okay. And what we will do, so if you've something to watch, if you could make sure you upload those by Tuesday, please. And then what Gunter and I will do is to collate everything together. My intention is that everybody gets to see everyone's feedback and marks, because I think there are interesting things that you can think about in relation to actually having a look at what a peer marking and feedback process looks like in this context. Gunther and I will also be marking, and we're looking at moderated marks where there's a significant difference in the grade category between the average of the group and the average of the grades that Gunther and I give. Then we'll do some moderating. Other than that, we'll go with the group mark. So that's the peer and self-assessment pro forma criteria uploaded to Blackboard, and then Gunther and I will pull things together, moderate them, and post them back to you. For anybody who is, these are more sort of notices now, there are a couple of interesting links that people gave in their presentations about online and peer marking and online group work, peer self-marking systems. And I have been approached by a JISC project, or part of a JISC project for next year, who are piloting an online peer assessment tool for these kinds of presentations and other sorts of group work conducted online. And if anybody is interested in that and would like to know more about it, or perhaps get involved with their students, if you'd let me know, that would be great. I wanted to remind you that on the calendar on the 16th, if you look on our course Blackboard site calendar, on the 16th of April, Sue Bloxham, who's one of the authors of the core text, is doing a presentation at Queen Mary. I'm going to look what she's doing. So she's been doing some research in different areas in medicine, social science, humanities and education, as well as the creative arts, looking at why it is that innovative interventions in helping students with assessment and feedback rarely result in higher grades, and pulling out some of the things that we've been trying to draw attention to through the different units in the module, about the way in which staff and students engage with criteria, the way in which we mark, the kind of criteria, implicit and explicit, that we're marking to. So she's asking, I think, some interesting questions about assessment practice based on the research she's done. So you might want to put that in your diary if you haven't already. So that's Sue Bloxham. She's going to be at Queen Mary on the 16th. And what else did I want to do? Shall I just pause for questions there? Has anybody got any questions they want to ask you? Put your hand up, we can give you the microphone. Okay. No? Okey-doke. Finally, what I'd like to do, Gunther, I hadn't asked you about this, but I don't know, you're more familiar with the polling system. I would just like to ask a few questions whilst you're here at the end of the day. Having experienced presentations using Collaborate, and this is our first time of running this module in this way, whether you could give me a tick or a cross, whether you think that next time we run this module that we should go through this exercise again. So if you found it useful, interesting, rewarding, could you give me a tick? If you think we should never do this again ever to anybody, could you give me a cross, please? And Gunther, are we able to get some sort of poll together I can record? If you feel uncomfortable having your name there with your cross against it, it won't go against your marks. Perhaps I shouldn't have asked this now. Sorry. If you'd rather not say, that's fine. Okay, that's useful for me. If we do this again, sorry. Yes, Yusuf. Did you want to ask a question? No? Maybe not. If we were to use this again, could you just clear your ticks for me? Oh, I can clear them, can't I? Sorry, if I clear them. Could you just tell me whether you thought that you needed more time for the presentation? We gave 15 minutes. If you think that's fine, then that's fine. But if you think you needed more time, if you could give me a tick. I'll send something more detailed by way of module monitoring form round at the end, but it gives me an idea whether you felt you had enough time. Okay.
Helen, I'm sorry, I'm not sure.
Broadly,
what you
yes.
What question
I'm
you're
wondering
asking?
if you felt you would have liked, for example, 20 minutes for your presentation rather than the 15. If you would have liked more time for your presentation. Sorry, I didn't mean more time to prepare. I meant more time for your presentation. Or if you thought 15 minutes was about right for an online presentation. Okay. So a tick means yes, I'd have liked 20 minutes, 25 minutes, whatever it is, but more time. Okay. Thank you. And finally, could you give me a tick if your group met face-to-face to prepare the presentation? I'm just interested in how many people have done this entirely online or... Yeah. Okay, so... a mixture. Aisha, did you want to say something? Did you want to ask a question, Aisha? No.
It was just, I assume that you meant, did we meet at all during the process? Is that?
Yeah, I just wondered if you'd actually completed the process entirely online or if you'd met as a group, which is absolutely fine. There's no reason why you shouldn't. That's not your meeting. But I just wondered if people had actually used the online tools entirely for the preparation of their presentations, right, or if they combined it with, Okay.
I was just checking I was answering that question.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah. Great. Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions about the process and what we're doing next, about in terms of the group work? Anybody want anything they want to ask?
Can you just remind us what the next couple of hand-ins are?
Yes,
please.
We've got. Yes.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So the most immediate hand-in is the presentation feedback and marks from today, preferably done today, or if you need to catch up some presentations that you've missed by next Tuesday. There's also an extended deadline for something called the individual plan that I put an email around. It was due in today, and I've extended it, I think, to the 10th of April. I'll confirm it with an announcement. That document is in the assessment section. It's in the handbook. It's not assessed. It's entirely an opportunity for you to say, for the individual assessment that you're submitting in May, where you're reviewing an assessment and feedback package, I'm thinking of using this module. These are the kind of issues that arise. This is the kind of thing that I've been looking at in terms of the literature. This is what I'd like to explore. So it's a very short document, like the one you did for your group planning. The purpose of that is to give Gunther and I the opportunity to come back with some quick feedback and say, that sounds brilliant. Why don't you think about maybe this journal, this article, this website might be useful, or perhaps to say, actually that sounds like an awful lot of work, why don't you think about focusing in on this particular issue if there are several issues that you could look at in the module. So if you want to hand that in as a very quick and dirty exercise over the weekend, then I'll get things back to you as soon as possible. But if you need more time to have a think about it, then we've extended the deadline. If you never hand it in, that's fine. It's an opportunity to get some feedback, really. So the next then formal deadline after we've done the feedback and the grades for the group presentations is at the end of May, and that's for the individual assessment, and that's the review of the the review of a module assessment and feedback package within the teaching context, and also lessons learned from the exercise of engaging in this group work. So it is, again, it's not about you assessing one another, it's about you having a look at the literature there on, if you haven't done so already, and many of you have looked at groups for today, but have a look at the literature on group work, have a think about the experience you've been through and tie the two together in terms of what implications there might be things for your own practice, things that you might want to introduce or drop, or just reflections really on the experience of being in the position of a student going through this in relation to things that you know from the literature. So those are the next two sort of deadlines, one completely informal, and then at the end of the module, 31st of May I think it is, the final assessment. But all the deadlines and documents are in the assessment section, as well as in the module handbook and on the module schedule as well on Blackboard. Anything else?
Cool. Thanks, Helen.
Okay.
I still got another
that was a lot, wasn't it?
Because I've got moderator rights. So I can.
Yeah, you can chip in there.
The last one on this marking for the last 701 module. When will that be issued? Do you know?
We have Jennifer, Will, and I have a double marking moderation day next Tuesday. We then are sending our samples off to the external on Wednesday, and we have an assessment board on the 18th. And the results and feedback and everything will be available after the assessment board within a couple of days. And Davina will write to everybody, but they'll go up on the student record system. So that's the 18th of April for the assessment board. Okay. Anything else I can... no. Just check my crib sheet. I think that's fine. I don't have anything else, Gunther. Was there anything you wanted to add at this stage?
No, nothing for me.
Okay. Well, it just remains then for me to say thank you very much for the really, really interesting presentations today. I've really enjoyed today. I hope that you have too, and that you've learned something not only through the process but through all the different presentations as well today. Thank you very much. And goodbye.
Goodbye, everybody.
Guys, do we want to stay online for a minute or two?
Yeah, let's wait until it's ours.
See, we can see who's hanging on, who's listening.
Well done.